Day 8 is considered a free day, so we'll split up and go different ways. Kathy will stay at the hotel. Deborah and I are going to go to the Biblical Zoo in Jerusalem, and the rest of the group is going to go down to Masada and go swimming in the Dead Sea. We'll be looking at the zoo trip first. Since the group is headed to Masada in the bus, we take a taxi out to the zoo. The Tish Family Zoo has opened up in this new area about 10 years ago, and they just opened an aquarium just a few weeks ago, but we can't get over to it. We'll be taking this route around the zoo. Let's just sit back and look at the animals. Okay. These Senegal bush babies are acting like they do in the wild. They jump everywhere. and are very skittish. But in the very end, I get a fairly good picture of one. This one over here is coming running, Deborah. Yeah, I think he came running all the way across. See if Deborah the Explorer would feed him. He's gonna eat it all. These are the kind of bears that David had to protect his flock from with just a slingshot. Is it any wonder that he said that Goliath isn't any big deal? I've killed lions and bears. Note the huge claws on them. This mother bear looks a little thin and long-legged. Most I've seen are the size of a grizzly and built like one.
Well, I am sure glad you chose to come visit me at the zoo. How about something to eat while you are here? Any old treats will do. What do you mean they will not let you feed me? Those keepers keep messing with my food supply. Maybe I can have you over here for supper tonight, I mean as a guest, not as supper itself. Well, what do you think of this wonderful zoo I live in? You would never have been able to see me in the wild, and I would be scared to go out there. David might still be around with that slingshot. You know he killed my great-uncle. I hear that the rest of the film crew went to see the Dead Sea today. I hope that they did not get too hot down there. It can really get hot there. Well, hope you are having a great day here at the zoo and have a good night's sleep. I hear tomorrow you have more on the agenda to do.
The leopard is supposed to have gone extinct in the 1980s in Israel, but it's still reported often. Wolves also used to roam this area, but they've been extinct for quite some time. Giraffes, like camels, move both legs on one side at the same time, thus giving them a swaying motion. There seem to be Uromastic lizards all over everywhere in Israel, some of them over a foot long. Although native to the area, this Eurasian jay looked like he could have been in the zoo as one of the animals. This is what we ate the other day in Tiberias. These also are native to the Sea of Galilee. This is the species of catfish that is in the Sea of Galilee. They grow to be about 10 pounds, but they can't eat them because they have no scales. And this is from the Jordan River. Maybe this was what was pecking at our toes when we had the baptismal service. And this brings us to the end of our zoo trip, or at least some end. The group that was headed out to Masada will be following this route. As you drive down from Jerusalem to the Dead Sea, you drop 4,000 feet in elevation. The Dead Sea is 50 miles long and 10 miles wide. The southern bay is very shallow, but the northern bay is 1,300 feet deep. The southern bay is now almost gone, and you can see the evaporation lines as it has been going down. Southern bay is basically used now for chemical production. It drops a half inch every day, or about 3 feet a year, because so little water is flowing into it now. The Dead Sea is mentioned as the Salt Sea many times in the Bible, and we think Sodom and Gomorrah may have been in this area. The top of this mountain at Masada is at sea level, and it was built here in 37 BC, although it seems Herod never actually used it. Currently there are two ways up, the cable cars that were built in 1960, and the snake path, which was the original way of walking up the hill. And the top looks like this. And this is the route we'll be taking. It's 2,000 feet long and 650 feet wide. All around the outside of the top are cisterns that held hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. And now, as we've reached it, everybody comes through the snake path gate. It would have looked something like this, and this is where they would have checked out who's coming in to this fortress. The walls were casemates. In other words, they were 13 feet between two different walls, and it was 4,200 feet around the entire circumference. And now we go look at the bathhouse. There's a very good model here of what the bathhouse looked like. You had an apotarium where they changed clothes, a frigidarium, which was the cold room, tepidarium, lukewarm, and a caldarium, which was the steaming hot room. And this is what the tepidarium looked like. In the caldarium, the floor was suspended on posts like this with water flowing underneath, steaming hot water, and also up the sides. It would be a really hot, steamy room. Next we go look at the storehouses. They had enough food in it to last for years. Next, if we go around, this is the hanging palace and a model of it as it would have looked. Herod was the only one that actually used this, so it was made for one man, but again, as far as we know, he never came here. He was so vain, he actually made them paint it like marble, even though it was just limestone. There's a great view from the top here across the Dead Sea and the wilderness area around Masada. On along is a huge swimming pool. Remember, they had to carry water up into this to fill it, but he loved his water systems. And then we come to the synagogue. This is the oldest synagogue that we know of anywhere in Israel. When the Romans arrived here in 73 AD, they built 8 camps around Masada, and it was the 10th Legion. They built a 3-mile-long siege wall. You can see it here at the bottom of this picture. And it might have looked something like this, although this is probably a little more elaborate. And then they started building on a ramp. There was a natural spur of rock, and so they just built it up. And then they raised the siege machine to attack the wall. The zealots on the inside were not idle either. They had taken down the casemate wall and filled it with boards. This would absorb the battering ram and earth so it would just bounce rather than collapse. This is where they broke through the wall. They set fire to the wooden structure, but then the wind changed and blew it back on their siege ramp, and the Jews thought, well, we had been saved by God. But then it came back on the wood and would burn through during the night. They decided to die rather than surrender, so each man killed his own family. Then they drew lots, and 12 men killed all the others, and then 1 man killed them, and then he committed suicide. These 12 lots were found in this room. Could they have been the lots that were drawn? And now it's time to leave Masada and head to the Dead Sea and go do a little bit of swimming at Kalia Beach. Remember all the rules. The Dead Sea is 34% by weight salt. In other words, if you took 100 pounds of water and evaporated it, you get 35 pounds of salt. The seawater is only 4%. That's why you float so well in the Dead Sea. The mud is supposed to help you with your youthful looking. And so you slather it on all over you and then let it dry. Let's see if it works. Will we look any more youthful? Sit down and let it bake and oh my gosh, it worked! Then you wash it off and head back to Jerusalem. And it's a beautiful nightfall in Jerusalem at the hotel. And we come to the end of day 8.